Hello, I'm John Macero, and welcome to Hot Topics. Today we're going to have two segments on our Hot Topics. Our first hot topic is going to be in regard to the fire station question that will be on the ballot on April 5th. So with me is my co-host Eric Gaynor. Hi, Eric. And we also have with us Town Council President Jim Letterie and the Fire Chief Scott Wiley. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you.
We're excited to have you here and have us have a conversation. We know that about a year and a half ago in that November election, we had a ballot question that did not pass. And a lot of people said it was because of the location. So now we have a new location, which is the middle school, correct? Mm-hmm. The old middle school. And so let's have a conversation about what's happening. What are people looking at, and where are we at on what's the ballot consist of, and where will the station be? So, and I'll address that to you, Chief.
So the proposed location is 151 Pauline Street. That's the old middle school and auditorium. So
okay.
It's on the ballot. It would free up, both of the stations would be abandoned at that time, the existing stations. Center Station on Pauline Street was built in 1885. The Shirley Street Station was built in 1905.
Wow.
So it's been
So they're well over 100 years.
120 years now since the Shirley Street Station was built, and that was 20 years after the Pauline Street Station. This gives us an opportunity not only to have the space that we need for the existing fire department, a 21st century fire department, but gives us room for expansion into the future. We're currently so space confined and constricted where we are right now that we actually store some of our equipment not only outside of the fire department property, but outside the town of Winthrop. We have have equipment that we have to store down at Deer Island because we have no place in the town to store it. This will give us, there's a lot of things that we need to do just to get up to, backtrack a little bit. 3 years ago, Massachusetts became an OSHA state for fire departments, okay, which changed dramatically a lot of the requirements and the regulations that we needed to adhere to. One of them, just as an example, 2 sets of turnout gear for every firefighter on the department, and all of that gear has to be less than 10 years old. Okay. One of the big things that came out, so that was a significant investment for the town. That's about $350,000 of turnout gear. But one of the things that they were adamant about was it cannot be stored on the apparatus floor. Can't be. You have to find somewhere else because it's either off-gassing or it's picking up carcinogens. But we have no place else to store it. I went to a big session at Florian Hall in Boston. They said, well, you can't store it on the apparatus floor. I don't have a choice. We have to. We absolutely have to. So we do. We're non-ADA compliant. We have female firefighter now, hopefully more in the future. We have another one that's at the top of the list, so it would be nice to have some more. We don't have any gender-specific facilities. We're not ADA compliant. We're not handicap accessible. The need for the station has been beat to death.
Well, there's no question about that. That's all. I've lived in Winthrop for 33 years now, and since I moved into Winthrop and to this day presently, it's all we've talked about is the need for a fire station. And you know, and we had an opportunity a year and a half ago, and okay, people didn't want the location, but there's still a need. And I remember people saying, well, it's the location part. There's still a need. We want to see a fire station be built. We realize that we have to have that. And it seems that the majority of that support is the old middle school location at 151 Pauline Street. So how would, and how many, within the fire, so how many trucks will you be able to have in there?
Well, there's a rendering that's on the old middle school right now.
And I'm sure we're going to put that rendering up as we're talking, so
this will be
take a look at it.
The new station, as proposed, would be a 4-bay station, a drive-through station, so no more backing apparatus into the stations anymore. This is a huge upgrade for us. It would drive-through station that would come in off of Brookfield Road. There'd be room for all of our apparatus in here, and the long-term goal of running ALS and BLS ambulance service out of the fire department. That's an ongoing issue. You know, the staffing issue. Availability, long delays for ambulances is not a local issue, it's a national issue. And we're hoping to with the town managers really spearheading this, they've made a significant investment in the town, from the town side, to the firefighters, and the firefighters have made a significant investment in time and effort to be trained as paramedics. So we have
wonderful.
5 of them in school, 1's done, 5 in school right now. It's a 2-year process from start to finish to become a paramedic, with the long-term goal of running ALS service out of the fire department. So we would be able to run all of our engines, the ladder truck, piggyback, back-to-back ambulances. There's dormitory space, there's gender-specific dormitory spaces, there's a lot of public access spaces, there's shared use in this proposed building. A training tower on the left side of the building. This really gives us a chance to move into the 21st century.
So 120 years ago, 125 years ago, these buildings were built for horse and carriage fire stations, right?
Horse-drawn fire apparatus, right?
Because that's why I hear a lot of times that the trucks themselves, the more modern trucks, they can't fit into these stations that were built years ago.
When we do buy new apparatus, and we're in the process of, we have one on order right now. When we do buy new fire apparatus, we have to custom order it to fit into the station.
That's got to be very expensive.
It's more expensive, it's more time consuming, it delays it. You can't just go in and say, a spec sheet and say, I'll take one of those E1, 1,500 gallon minute pumper. You can't. We have to have them custom built. The other problem we have is when we have out-of-town companies coming in to cover our stations, they can't fit into the stations. Right. When the weather's fine, that's not an issue. When it's below zero, when it's freezing cold out, if they're out on the street for extended periods of time, they're full of water. And we have to recirculate the water and be cognizant of that. So it's a size issue. But the conditions in the station right now, we have an issue with the center station right now where in about 1970, they poured concrete floors on top of the old wooden floors, probably thinking they needed to get 25 or 30 years out of them. Now here we are 55 years later, and the floor's collapsing in the center station.
It's like the portable buildings they used to put up for schools thinking, we got them for 10 years, and they would last 50.
Right. So that's an issue we're dealing with right now.
Okay. Yeah. So that's huge. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I do know that when I was on the Capital Committee in Stoneham as superintendent, we had to get a new apparatus, and I mean, it was somewhere very expensive, about $900,000. But they had the same issue. Right. They had to get it custom made because it wouldn't fit otherwise. Right. So I mean, this will allow us to, and it will also allow you that if you have a need for a truck right away, you won't have to wait a year out or certain things.
We had a period of, going back about 5 years ago, we were in need of a spare engine. And the town allocated us a significant amount of money to go out and purchase a used engine that was going to buy us some time for a spare engine. We found plenty of them that were certified, plenty of them that were pump rated. We couldn't find one that would fit into the station.
There you go.
And that was an issue.
This question might be for you, Jim, and that is, has the option to take the center station and expand it by acquiring abutting properties and then remodeling the center station looked at, and if so, what was the result?
It was definitely looked at. It was looked at a year and a half ago plus when we had the other question on the ballot. And what would have to happen for that to make a station of the 21st century to fit all the needs of the fire department? We would have to take by eminent domain 7 to 9 properties, including several single-family homes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that would be to keep the fire stations where they were.
To keep them where they were on Parliament
Street.
It would also involve a more costly, you'd have to relocate during construction, which is a huge plus for this, right? To have it at the middle school so you could keep everything going, and then when it's ready, you could just shut the doors and move over. Gotcha. Here you would have to relocate half the department, right, at Pauline Street. So we have looked into that. To remodel that specific station would not give us nearly the square footage we had. We could make it as nice as we wanted to make it, new bathrooms, this and that. It wouldn't nearly give us the square footage we need and the facilities or the space. So that was, we just didn't think that was a prudent investment at all.
Yeah. I hear you. And then when we're talking about the location, I know there was some consideration for the basketball courts on Alden Street.
Yeah.
Could you explain the decision to go with the middle school, or the old middle school?
The old middle school, yeah. So, you know, we mentioned the election about a year and a half ago, and it was rejected, and probably most prominently about the location, right? So there's three things we have to prove. We have to prove a need, we have to prove a location, we have to prove the cost. So the need, I think, is we have done that. I think the vast majority of people in this town realize that there is a significant need for a new fire station. The location was the big thing. Middle school has always been on the radar, right? The thought from the council and the town manager and many people in town where we wanted to try to have some economic stimulus that came out of that development and some additional tax base that came out of that development. And we looked at that location this time, and we looked at the basketball courts, and because of that potential of income for the town and stimulus for businesses, we thought we would go with the basketball courts. There were several pluses about that. It did fit on the site. We could relocate the basketball courts. But the more I thought about it and looked, and we had a special council meeting just to discuss the middle school so we could try to put that to bed to get our minds focused on two things at once. And after that meeting, I realized that we're nowhere close to having, 8 years of spinning our wheels, coming up with 10, 20 different options, and to get 5 people to agree on it is very difficult. And I thought this was the opportunity to maybe let's tackle both projects at once and just put the fire station at the middle school, because if it does sit there for another 4 or 5 years, then it's just useless and we're wasting money.
So the fire station would go where the academic and the auditorium are currently right now. If you know the old middle school, the academic building to the left, if I'm looking at it straight ahead, and then there's the auditorium. To the right is the gymnasium. That would stay, the gymnasium?
Gymnasium would stay, the hockey rink would stay. And it wouldn't be exactly on the current footprint. There'd be a sizable, if you're going up Waldemar now and you see, it's probably 10 feet to the side door of the old middle school. This is going to be about 30 feet off. So there is going to be a significant little part. It's going to be green space, going to be trees there to have some separation with the neighborhood, right? Because we're cognizant of that. And then there'll be some separation between the end of the firehouse and the gymnasium and the auditorium and the gymnasium, and that will be parking and some additional.
And I have to say this. I first of all, I like the idea of the location of where you're going to put it. I think that, and I know that I've seen a lot of people who seem to always say, whenever you would have that out there on Facebook or wherever, social media, it was always, well, let's put it at the middle school, let's put it at the middle school. Okay, well, it's going at the middle school now, so that's where we want to see it at. And then there were people who would talk about, well, the auditorium could be like a Lynn auditorium and all that stuff. Lynn has that auditorium, and people go there to the Lynn auditorium for the events that they need. They're not coming to Winthrop for that right now, for those purposes, and I understand that. I think the good purpose is of what we need as a town. We need a fire station, and we need a 21st century fire station, and I would imagine the location, because we have one across the street, is a good location for the proximity of our town.
It is.
If you want to talk about that.
I will. So we have standards that we have to follow and standards that we're applied to. And the standard that we apply to where it comes to professional, what they call a professional full-time fire department, is NFPA 1710. And NFPA 1710, because of the density of Winthrop, classifies us as an urban fire department, not a suburban fire department. Where it's an urban fire department, we are supposed to, from time of alarm to time of response to time of arrival, we're supposed to get to the address within 5 minutes and 20 seconds, 90% of the time. So there's some contingencies built in there for weather or for construction or things like that. So 90% of the time we're supposed to be able to get from the door, from time of arrival to your door in 5 minutes and 20 seconds. We are 1.6 square miles. We can get anywhere, I guarantee. Absolutely positively, we can produce the documentation, we can produce the statistics, and we will get 5 minutes and 20 seconds, we can get anywhere in the town of Winthrop. Again, we've talked about this before. We're 0.3 of a square mile from being the smallest community in the state.
Wow.
There's really no need. Nahant at 1.2 is the smallest in the state. At 1.5 or 6, there's no need for us to still have 2 fire stations in this
Right,
town.
right.
You know, when the Shirley Street station was built, Washington Ave stopped at the Elks. It didn't go all the way through. So if you wanted to get to that side of town, you had to go all the way, mind you, with horse-drawn fire apparatus. Then you would go all the way around town. And that section of town in the early 1900s was littered with hotels, and summer tourism, and that's all not there anymore. But driving the apparatus we have now, under an FPA 1710, we are absolutely positively, there is a slight degradation in response time, but certainly well within the standards.
So when you come back from a call, and you say you can drive through, so how does the pattern work that comes off of
At
Pauline Street?
At this location, we would come down Pauline Street, theoretically coming back, going towards Pleasant Street. We'd make a right on Brookfield, a right on Waldemar, right on Brookfield,
Got it.
into the back of the station now. We would always, 100% of the time, respond out of the front of the building.
Right.
Even if the call were on Brookfield Road, we would come out, make a right, and a right, and go to Brookfield Road.
Right, but it makes it, because when you have to back in and all of that, that causes traffic, that causes things that are happening as you're doing all of those areas. And in this
It's also a
particular
lot
case-
safer for us.
Correct.
It's a lot safer for us. It's a lot safer for the apparatus. You'll find, the greatest majority of the accidents that happen with fire apparatus are when they're being backed up.
Right.
Yeah.
The drive-through concept for us is a huge upgrade. The other thing is, with the standards you're supposed to adhere to now, is you're supposed to be able to pull the biggest piece of fire apparatus you have onto the ramp and still not be on the street. If you look at the stations we have now, as soon as we come out the door,
Right.
we're on the sidewalk, literally
right.
on
Yes.
the sidewalk. And these are well over 100 feet off the street, this station. It's safer for everybody involved. Traffic control devices, 21st century fire department. When we come out of the station, we'll be able to activate notification lighting on the street to know people who are coming out.
And Chief, I'm assuming there'll be some operating efficiencies by having one station as opposed to 2.
It is, yes. Currently, like, if we say down at Shirley Street, so we have the captain, who's the shift commander at headquarters. There's a lieutenant who's in charge of the Shirley Street station, 2 pieces of apparatus. If the lieutenant is on vacation, we'll have 4 firefighters down there.
Right.
This way, we'll have the deputy chief, captains, lieutenants, all under one roof. There'll always be leadership and officers on duty.
No, that sounds great. And John, if I could circle back, because I think this is important when talking about the gymnasium, because I think people ought to know that maybe Jim, you can answer this. Not only is it not going to be touched, because I think there is a real need for another gym in this town. It's used all the time. Is there going to be any improvements made to that gym, or is that a different story?
Yes, the plan longer term is definitely to have improvements made. It's not part of this project.
Okay.
It's not what's being paid for out of this project. But
All right.
yes, the plan is, there is absolutely a need.
Yes.
Not only for the schools. We're incredibly fortunate to have 3 new buildings, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, we went from 4 buildings to 3. So
Right.
we went, even though it's a much bigger gym, it's still a gym.
Right,
It's
exactly.
still one gym. And you have, up to 7 basketball teams if you have middle school,
Yep.
if you have freshmen, if you have JV and varsity, boys and girls.
Exactly.
So the
Finding
gym
space is hard.
space is at a premium.
Yeah.
Even our indoor track has no place to try to get some sort of training in or practice in, and that helps them too. The police do an incredible job with the youth of our town, with the gymnasium as well, running
Yes.
events out of there.
Right.
So that gym is incredibly useful. And one of the biggest things probably is Parks and Rec. This
That's right.
gives Parks and Rec a home, a permanent home,
That's
where they haven't had that permanent home for a long time, and this gives them the ability to grow. And they not only help our youth, but help our elderly population as well.
No, and speaking of the auditorium, I don't think there's anybody who's more about theater than John or myself, but Frankie Valley is not coming to the Winthrop Memorial Auditorium. I mean, it's not in a condition, for those of us who are familiar with the auditorium, it can't put on, it would have to
and
compete
we did
to-
look at that when we were building the new high school. We looked at the auditorium as, could that be something
Yeah,
that you could take a look at?
it-
And you were looking at that time, 10 years ago, you were looking at probably $2 million just to
Right.
bring it to code.
Exactly.
And so to do something like that, we have that space. We have beautiful spaces at the high school. We need to figure out how to utilize those more for the community. And that's something that we can talk about at other times. Let's get to the bottom line. Let's talk about the costs. On so we know that folks are going to come out on April 5th, and there's a ballot question. What does the ballot question actually ask for this particular
and
project?
again, we all know April 5th. We all know it's going to be a little different. It's a Saturday. It's not a Tuesday.
That's true.
So just
Thank you for
people to
reminding
remember,
everybody.
It's going to be April 5th, Saturday. Same as a regular election, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Locations will be the same. Precincts 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 will be at the old middle school gym. Precinct 4 will be at O'Connell Hall at Golden Drive. So it will just be like a regular election. It will just be a Saturday instead of a Tuesday. Again, we're looking to get as many people out as possible, and the council thought, the majority of the council felt that that would be the best way to handle that.
And we'll be keeping the gym to be able to have
Yeah,
that
that's right.
voting place there,
That's
as we just talked about. So.
And the ballot will have 3 questions on it.
Right.
And, we'll put, I'm sure WCAT will have a copy of the ballot up, but the ballot will have 3 questions. Question 1 will be a firehouse, and I'll basically read what the question
That'd be
will
great.
be. Shall the town of Winthrop be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued in order to pay cost of the demolition of the old middle school and auditorium, and for designing, engineering, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire station, including the payment of cost incidental and related thereto. The town council has voted to appropriate funds to demolish the old middle school and auditorium and build a new fire station in town. The new fire station will replace the 2 existing fire stations that will be deactivated upon completion of construction. The appropriated funds would authorize vendors to demolish the old existing middle school and auditorium and design, engineer, build, and furnish the new fire station. The funds would be borrowed from your taxes only until the debt of the service is paid off. Again, just like a mortgage, when the debt service is paid off, there will be no fire station debt payments added to your taxes. The entire debt service payments are anticipated to begin in fiscal year 28. Now, the first portion of that was the actual question. With a town having its own special election, we have a little more flexibility to be able to do some explanations under it, and that's what that last paragraph for. And then it continues to say a yes vote would authorize the town to fund all the costs of building a new fire station, anticipated not to exceed $38.5 million by issuing bonds to pay for the cost of the project, and to temporarily exclude the amount of debt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5. And a no vote would not authorize the town to exclude debt service for the levy, and will be held to the limitations required by Proposition 2.5. The town would not be able to build a fire station or need to bring forward a new fire station, and would need to bring forward a new fire station, a sample ballot seeking authorization at a future election. So, it kind of, in questions 2 and 3 of the ballot concerning the schools, right? There are 2 overrides for the school. Question 2 concerns the $3.5 million override for the schools and their operating budget, while question 3 asked for school support for $1.45 million to start an education stabilization fund, which is...
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that
at
in the
a
next
future date.
segment.
So
with
going back to the
superintendent.
38.5, so 38.5 million is the cost of the fire station. And again, quick difference between an override and a debt exclusion. An override would begin immediately on your taxes in the next fiscal year. So in this case, it would be July 1st of 2025. For the fire station, it's a debt exclusion, so it's kind of like buying a house. So normally, like buying a house, you would get a 30-year mortgage. We looked at the mortgage rates, we looked at the payback, and we've decided to go with a 25-year mortgage for the fire station. 25 years would add roughly $29 a year to the taxpayers' payments. However, over the course of the 25 versus 30 years, the taxpayers will save a little under $3,000 in payments. The town would save $6.8 million in interest payments. So it's an incredibly huge number, and we thought it would be very prudent, financially
Yes.
prudent, to go to 25 years instead of 30. So, and again, with a debt exclusion, you're not going to go out, if the fire station is passed, you're not going to go out and borrow $38 million. It's going to take time. We have to hire an OPM, as we did with this high school, a project manager, an architect, designer. So what we would do is we would do some short-term bond anticipation notes, right? And those might cost, to the average taxpayer, it might cost $25 a year for the first couple of years. The major portion, or the regular portion, which would roughly be 70 cents a thousand of assessed value. Now, when we say assessed value, it doesn't mean what you think your house is worth, because that might be more than what's it assessed at. On your tax bill, it says assessed value of your home. The average assessed value in the town of Winthrop right now is $697,305. So based on the average house, your taxes would go up probably beginning in January of 2028. They would go up $480 a year. So you get 4 tax bills a year, so each tax bill would go up about $120. So that's how that would work. We just think that's the prudent and financial way to do it. And so it's the big understanding there is to realize that the full effect of this, that $487 a year or $120 a quarter, wouldn't be shown until probably January of 2028.
Right, and that's because, as you said, you'd be taking out a little short-term stuff to get the ball rolling and get the designs and all of that stuff. But when you're finally ready to do the full job is when you would take the full amount.
And another question that we've had on the price too is people say, well, if you're not building it for a year, that 38 million might turn into 40 million or 41 million. That's not necessarily true. We've done 3 debt exclusions in the last 25 years with 3 schools. They've all come in under budget. When we're doing the financial projections for this, we're anticipating a 16% escalation in cost. Okay. So we're making projections based on 2026 and 2027 cost of materials. So that's almost a $4 million contingency just based on the escalation of what products might cost. We also have a 10% overage or contingency for any items that might have cost more or done. So there are almost $6 million in contingencies involved in this to make sure that we don't go over.
The good thing too, Jim, is interest rates are starting to come down too.
Yeah,
so
and
timing is good.
Yes, and when we did this, we went to our financial advisors who do the bonding for Winthrop, so this is not made pie out of the sky that we just sat down and said, oh, we think this is what it's going to be. This is what they're projecting rates to be.
Speaking from a fiscal standpoint, can we talk about how this might impact insurance for a homeowner? Chief, is that something you can?
So the town gets an ISO rating, gets an insurance rating, and the insurance rating for the fire department goes from 1 to 10. But it's the opposite of what you might think. 1 is the best and 10 is the worst.
What are we now?
So we are currently a 4. So we are better than average. The great majority of the fire departments are rated a 5. We're a 4, and a 4 is better than a 5.
Okay.
This, if anything, it will improve our ISO rating. It certainly won't hurt it. And you say, why would a homeowner be concerned about what our ISO rating is? Because your ISO rating dictates what your homeowner's insurance is going to cost.
Sure. So
if you're a 5 or a 6, you're paying more than if your fire department is a 3 or a 4. Okay. So where a 4 will absolutely, at the bare minimum, stay at a 4, if not possibly move to a 3.
Terrific.
And it's funny, I would imagine that most homeowners have no clue when they're dealing with that for their own personal insurance of what the rating would be for the fire station and how that would affect us.
I was just thinking about what happened in California with the insurance over there with the wildfires pulling out. And I mean, I know we're not nearly that situation, but I figured that it would have some kind of effect right on the.
But another reason to, for the homeowner to realize the importance of why they need, because it's going to help them save too, for their own personal insurance. So that's key. I never knew that. So that's great to know that information.
I think a lot of people around here think about flooding for their insurance.
Correct.
They don't necessarily think about fire and safety.
We don't think about it. We have to pay for it. It's quite a bit.
We're fortunate on the fire safety and protection.
Right. So let's. Why Saturday? Why did you pick Saturday to do the election?
I did not pick Saturday. The council.
Why did the council? Well, you represent the council, so.
No, again, we had options where it's a special election. We were looking at the possibility of trying to get as many voters out as possible. We thought that Saturday would give that opportunity, right? A lot of people, maybe not as many people are working, different schedules, there's so many activities going on. Again, it's a 13-hour window, so you should be able to get out. The last time we've had an override in this town was 2009, 16 years ago, and there were roughly 5,800 people that came out and voted. We want to see at least that. We want to see people's opinions. We're spending their money. Again, the need is there. We know the need is there. I think we've proven that this is what the citizens want for a location, and it's a great location. It offers a lot of benefits, and we think the cost is. It's a lot of money. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's a lot of money, but I think it's money well spent to protect the people that are protecting us.
Yes.
I agree. And on that note, is there anything else you'd like to add, Chief?
I just want to say, I think it's important to say that there is no early voting for this election, but there are absentee ballots going to be available.
Good point.
They should be ready in the next. Applications for absentee ballots are available, but there will be absentee ballots. There will be no early voting, but the clerk has said that if someone goes to the town hall and asks for an absentee ballot, there would be provisions in place that they could vote right there at the clerk's office.
So what happens to folks that might be living elsewhere and need an absentee ballot? How do they get in touch with, do they call town hall, or do they?
There are certain people that are on a list to automatically every election have a ballot mailed out. Those people, it will still pertain. Anybody requesting a ballot, you can still do it. It just has to be in the mail back to us by March 31st. Not back to us, has to be postmarked by March 31st.
But the request, though.
The request will come in, it will be sent out just as a
Okay.
regular
To the
election,
clerks.
and they would be able to send it back.
So when you say a request, what does that look like?
You could do a request actually online. If you go to the town website,
That's
you
key.
could either fax it, old school, or you could actually print it, take a picture, and email it back.
Okay.
For the request, not the actual ballot.
Right,
has
for
to
the
be mailed
request.
back. And just even to register to vote, you have until March 26th to register to vote.
Okay.
So you could still register if you are not. You could always call the town clerk's office if you had any questions, if you were eligible, not eligible, whatever the situation may be. But yeah, absentee ballots, we encourage, especially students. A lot of people are vacationing in the south. And
Right, and
during
a
the
lot of
winter
people,
months,
some
and you
people
wanna
who
be
live in
able to
Winthrop
vote.
live in other places down in
Yep.
and they're still not back by, April, and so hopefully they'll see this and put in the request
Yes.
component of it. And I think being able to do it online is probably
Yes.
very helpful.
Yes.
To get that, so that they can get the ballots and then get it back to the, before April 5th. So, Eric, do you want anything to close?
Well, I would just like to say a thank you to you, Chief, and your department for all that you've done for this community. We are very grateful, and we appreciate everything that the firefighters have done for the community in maybe not the best conditions. So,
Right.
hopefully that'll change.
I hope so.
So thank you for that.
And Jim, are you, any final comments?
No, I
Jim?
want to thank you both for having this forum. It's a great opportunity for people. I know myself and the chief are readily available at any time. We are hoping to have as many coffee hours as we can. If anybody wants to get a group of friends or something together to answer more questions or to find out more about the override or the cost or whatever the question is, feel free to contact either one of us. There will be a couple, we have a website up and running. It's winthropfirehouse.com. Oh, it's Winthrop Fire Station. winthropfirestation.com. On that, there'll be many different tabs that you can go around. There'll be a finance tab that you can actually link to get, if you put your address in, it will give you the assessed value of your
Right.
house. You could just put that assessed value in. It will tell you how much your yearly cost and quarterly cost would be. It would also tell you there are future debt exclusions coming off the tax rolls. Miller Field is coming off in fiscal 31, so it will tell you the net effect of that. That's roughly $140 a year for taxpayers. And then halfway through this anticipated debt service for the fire station, the middle high school would be coming off the tax rolls, which is roughly $475 a year for the average taxpayer. So that will show you all those calculations and your net cost or savings. So we encourage you to go to winthropfirestation.com. And again, you could press a button there. You could host a coffee or, again, ask any questions you want. Also on March 8th, at both fire stations in the morning. I think it's a Saturday morning from
That'll be next
9
Saturday,
to
a week
12.
from tomorrow. A week from
Okay.
tomorrow.
They're going to have tours. So,
Okay.
and this is more for adults for safety reasons and stuff, but to go down, take a look, talk to the firefighters, thank them for their service, and take a look at the locations the deplorable locations that they're existing in right now. But we encourage people to take a look.
Well, thank you. That's very important information. And I know, I just said it's a week from tomorrow. I'm not sure when this will air. So just remember March 8th, if it hasn't happened yet, when you see this, make sure you get to the fire stations. I want to echo, before we close, I want to echo what Eric says. Thank you, Chief, and thank you to all our firefighters. I mean, they save our lives, and people have to remember that. You know, these are folks that put their life on the line, and there are many people in this community and all around this country that they have saved lives for. I think it's important that we give them the opportunity that they need and the stuff that they need desperately to help us. That's what this is about. This is about taking care of us. And they know better than any of us what we need for our safety. So with that, please, on April 5th, make sure that you get out to vote, and let's put an end to all of this and get our fire station built that we need to have for the town of Winthrop. Thank you.